let me tell you something, Mr. Trump. You gonna learn a few lessons from us. And I'm gonna be the first one. You and your little friend off of Twitter, y'all about to find out. You go ahead and desecrate our Constitution, or you look at the laws that have been passed into law. And in those hearings, Republicans described weaponization as, quote, corruption, quote, government abuse. We're gonna make sure you understand what democracy looks like, and this ain't it.
In just a few minutes, I'm going to break down how she completely dismantled Trump, the exact words, the perfect timing, and the sharp precision that left him exposed. Even some of his biggest supporters are calling this a brutal takedown. But before we dive in, I have a small request. If you're enjoying this content, please hit the like button and subscribe. It's totally free and helps us out more than you know. Alright, did you subscribe? Great. Now, let's get into it. What Jasmine Crockett just did to Trump is something you have to see to believe. While most politicians throw weak shots that barely land, she came in swinging with a verbal smackdown so precise, so devastating, that even Trump's usual defenses couldn't save him. This wasn't just another political critique. This was a complete and total exposure of his weaknesses, and the way she did it was nothing short of brilliant.
This is why I'm not gonna be able to preach, because I probably won't be able to stop cussing. Purging of thousands of hardworking, dedicated federal servants who swore an oath to protect the Constitution and the rule of law.
What made Crockett's takedown so brutal? Simple. Timing and precision. In politics, hitting at the right moment is everything. She struck when Trump was already on edge, feeling the heat about his record. Think of a boxer waiting for their opponent to lower their guard before delivering a knockout punch. That's exactly what she did. Trump was expecting the usual cautious criticism, the kind he can brush off with his standard witch hunt or fake news routine. But instead, Crockett came at him with full force, calling him exactly what she believed him to be, a thug and a white supremacist. No sugarcoating, no political doublespeak, just a straight-up no-nonsense accusation right to his face. And for once, Trump, who always has a comeback ready, was completely caught off guard, frozen like a deer in headlights. We've all seen Trump's playbook. The moment someone calls him out, he fires back with insults, distractions, and endless deflections. But this time, none of that worked. Crockett hit him so directly and so unexpectedly that his usual defense mechanisms failed him. It was like she cracked the code, pressing exactly the right buttons to throw him off his game. And here's the kicker. Crockett isn't just any politician. Her background as a trial attorney gave her the perfect skill set for this moment. Trial lawyers specialize in trapping people in their own words, exposing lies, and making them squirm under pressure. They ask pointed questions, refuse to accept weak answers, and know exactly how to make someone look guilty without even saying the word. Trump walked into this fight thinking it was just another day at the office. Instead, he found himself up against someone trained to dismantle people just like him, piece by piece, argument by argument, until there was nowhere left to run.
But let me tell y'all something. I know some of y'all have been frustrated, and you've been saying, where are the Democrats? They use it as a war cry, a battle call, to justify dismantling federal agencies.
Most political criticism is vague and easy to dodge. Stuff like bad policies and divisive rhetoric that lets politicians wiggle their way out of accountability. But Crockett didn't play that game. She went straight for the jugular with hard facts. Instead of just calling Trump a liar, she listed exact moments where he had misled the public. His falsehoods about Ukraine, immigration, and national security. She didn't just make claims, she handed the audience receipts. And her delivery, absolutely masterful. While her words were sharp enough to cut, her tone stayed cool and collected. No yelling, no dramatic gestures, just a calm, matter-of-fact breakdown of why Trump was untrustworthy. That kind of confidence is devastating in an argument. It makes the other person's denial seem frantic and defensive. It's like when someone casually points out that your fly is down. Getting mad about it only makes things worse. Crockett essentially set the perfect trap. No matter how Trump responded, he would look bad. If he denied the accusations, he'd look flustered and defensive. If he ignored them, it would seem like he was admitting they were true. There was no way out, and you could almost see it dawn on him in real time. He had walked straight into a political ambush, and there was no escape.
Where are the leaders? Well, I'm here to tell you that we ain't never left y'all. All right? We are here. This phrase, The weaponization of government is something that has been overly used and repeated by my Republican colleagues.
Crockett's approach revealed something crucial. The best way to take on Trump isn't by shouting over him or sinking to his level. It's by hitting him with undeniable facts in a way that leaves him no room to squirm out. Trump thrives on chaos. He wants an emotional back and forth, a spectacle where he can play the victim and rile up his base. But by staying calm and methodical, Crockett stripped him of that advantage. This wasn't some lucky shot that just happened to land. It was a carefully planned dismantling of Trump's usual defenses. She essentially wrote a playbook for how to corner him. Step 1, be specific. Step 2, be direct. Step 3, stay completely calm. Step 4, watch him self-destruct. But the real turning point, when she didn't just hint at his ties to white supremacy, she outright called him out. And then, instead of letting that statement hang in the air, she backed it up with cold, hard numbers. She pointed to the fact that 80% of violent crimes come from groups Trump refuses to condemn. That wasn't just a political jab, it was a nuke. And you could almost hear the silence in the room as it hit.
We are also going to make sure that they uphold the law. We are not going to sit around about the DOJ being weaponized by the White House. I am concerned about the FBI.
But this time, Trump's usual script didn't work. Crockett didn't just call him racist, she tied his rhetoric directly to real-world violence. She didn't give him an easy way out. If he ignored her, it looked like he was conceding the point. If he fought back, it meant he had to argue against hard statistics instead of just dismissing a personal insult. Either way, he lost. And that look on his face, that wasn't just anger. That was realization. He knew he couldn't use his tired routine of deflection and whataboutism. His go-to, "I'm the least racist person in the room" line wasn't gonna cut it because this wasn't about personal opinion. It was about facts. And facts are Trump's worst enemy. Most politicians tiptoe around calling Trump a white supremacist because they're afraid of the backlash. They soften their language, use phrases like racially insensitive or divisive rhetoric. Crockett, she walked straight into the fire and made sure everyone watching saw the flames. And here's why that's a game changer. By framing Trump's racism as a national security threat rather than just a moral failing, she forced people to see it in a different light. This wasn't just about hurt feelings or political correctness. She made it clear, white supremacy, the kind Trump refuses to denounce, isn't just offensive, it's dangerous, it's violent, and it's killing people.
While you go ahead and desecrate our Constitution, or you look at the laws that have been passed into law, we are going to make sure you understand what democracy looks like. And this ain't it. And say, never mind, we'll just ignore that. Instead, we are going to be in your face. We are going to be on your ass.
And that's the brilliance of Crockett's approach. She didn't just throw out an accusation and hope it stuck. She structured it like a courtroom argument, laying out the evidence before Trump could even think about his next move. By tying the January 6th rioters directly to white supremacy and domestic terrorism, she turned Trump's greatest source of pride, his loyal fan base, into a liability. If he defended them, he was endorsing extremists. If he disowned them, he risked alienating the very people who would walk through fire for him. And let's be real, Trump doesn't do well when he's forced to make a choice. He thrives on vague, contradictory statements that let him play both sides. But Crockett didn't give him that option. She boxed him in so tightly that even his usual word salad couldn't get him out. This wasn't just a strong attack, it was a roadmap, a masterclass on how to make Trump's defenses collapse under their own weight. Instead of getting sucked into his chaos, Crockett made him fight on her terms. And for once, Trump had no winning move.
Civil rights attorney by trade. I know about the Department of Justice and what they're supposed to be doing. With the political narrative, you will be suspended without pay, have your security clearance revoked. I am also very concerned by a rogue DOJ, or one that is not beholden to the American people.
And that's what made Crockett's attack so devastating. She didn't just put Trump on the spot, she made him choose between bad and worse. Her words weren't just sharp, they painted a picture, physically tearing our democracy down. That's not abstract, it's not some policy debate full of legalese. It's a mental image of broken windows, Confederate flags in the Capitol, and police officers getting beaten with flagpoles. People don't have to sit there and analyze what she's saying. They see it, they feel it. it. And Trump, he suddenly had nowhere to hide. Normally, when he's accused of racism or extremism, he goes to his greatest hits, claiming he's the least racist person, pointing at his one black friend, or ranting about fake news. But Crockett's words didn't leave room for his usual escape routes. Every possible response made him look guilty. If he denied it, he'd sound weak and defensive, something his ego can't handle. If he ignored it, he'd look like he was silently agreeing. If he lashed out, he'd confirm exactly what she was saying. This was strategy, not just spectacle. Crockett wasn't looking for a viral moment. She was putting Trump in a chokehold he couldn't slip out of. And for the first time in a long time, he looked like a man who realized he'd walked into a trap with no way out.
It is essential that we understand what exactly weaponization means. Fortunately, history is kind to us and exposed the weaponization of government, specifically the weaponization of Department of Justice. And in those hearings, Republicans described weaponization as, quote, corruption, quote, government abuse.
Crockett's brilliance wasn't just in what she said, it was how she said it. Most politicians tiptoe around Trump's lies, afraid of sounding too aggressive or getting dragged into his whirlwind of distractions. But Crockett, she didn't bother debating. She didn't waste time arguing. She stated the truth as if it were as obvious as the sky being blue. As it relates to him being a liar, I mean, that's just what it is. No hesitation, no qualification, no room for debate. Just a plain, undeniable fact. That's what made it so powerful. She wasn't inviting Trump to argue. She was making it clear that there was no argument. This wasn't a matter of interpretation or political spin. This was reality. And once again, she left him with nowhere to run. If he tried to fight back, he'd have to prove he isn't a liar. A nearly impossible task given the mountain of falsehoods he's built his career on. If he ignored it, the statement would just hang there, unchallenged, for everyone to absorb. If he deflected, he'd look exactly like the dishonest politician she was exposing. And that's what Crockett nailed. She didn't get lost in a back and forth. She didn't try to prove Trump was a liar with an endless list of receipts. She simply stated it as a fact, because at this point, for most Americans, it is a fact. And the more Trump flailed, the truer it looked.
They will retaliate. If you don't agree with their political agenda, you get suspended. These are the words of congressional Republicans. This is what they believe embodies weaponization.
Field day, and Crockett tapped into that psychological play perfectly. She showed that Trump's act isn't just about politics. It's a carefully crafted performance designed to manipulate his base by painting himself as the underdog while demonizing those he disagrees with. She wasn't just calling out his lies. She was exposing the deeper, more insidious psychology behind them. By framing Trump's rhetoric and behavior as a pattern, Crockett forced people to see beyond the surface. She wasn't just arguing with him, she was pulling back the curtain on how his lies operate, how they spread, and how they affect real lives. She made it clear that these aren't just abstract political disagreements. This is about real harm, real lives being affected by the consequences of his misinformation and hate-mongering. It's like she wasn't just cutting at the branches of his lies. She was going straight for the roots, showing how they infiltrated so much of America's discourse. Trump's lies about Ukraine, immigration, and the election weren't just random fabrications. They were part of a broader, coordinated effort to reshape reality. And Crockett wasn't just calling him out for that. She was making sure everyone else saw the full scope of the damage. By tying his lies to actual suffering, Crockett made it impossible for anyone to dismiss what was happening. She didn't just poke holes in Trump's arguments. She exposed the very system that allows those lies to thrive, from social media giants like Musk to Trump's loyal enablers in Congress. Her focus on facts, real-world consequences, and historical context made her takedown not just effective, it made it unforgettable. And it's exactly that kind of calculated, fact-driven strategy that left Trump looking like he had nowhere to turn. Crockett's approach was nothing short of brilliant, and her strategy brilliantly cut through Trump's typical manipulation tactics, specifically the DARVO method: deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. Trump is practically a walking case study for this psychological manipulation technique, where he constantly flips the script, positioning himself as the victim even when he's the one doing harm. Crockett completely dismantled this by calling Trump out as the true divider-in-chief, a title that perfectly captures the harmful legacy he's left behind. Trump's entire game is rooted in convincing his base that he's under siege, whether it's from the media, the so-called deep state or his political opponents. But Crockett didn't play into that narrative. Instead, she flipped the narrative and exposed the real suffering happening under Trump's influence. It's not the billionaires, the media, or Trump himself. It's everyday Americans who are losing their rights and freedoms. What made Crockett's takedown even more devastating was how she highlighted Trump's hypocrisy. She pointed out that he claims to be persecuted while actively aligning himself with autocratic figures like dictators. It's the classic behavior of a playground bully, whining to the teacher about being picked on, even though he's the one causing all the harm. This is where Crockett hit Trump hardest, showing how his claims of victimhood are not only false, but an active attempt to gaslight his supporters into overlooking the real harm he's causing. The imagery Crockett used, like picturing Trump as a bloated steamroller flattening the Constitution while claiming to protect it, made her message not only clear, but memorable. The visual stuck in viewers' minds, turning Trump's false claims into something absurd and grotesque. Crockett didn't stop at just calling out Trump's lies. She exposed the broader systemic issue. She didn't just accuse him of lying. She painted a picture of the actual damage done by his lies, like how fear-mongering around immigration is leading to labor shortages, affecting real people's livelihoods. This wasn't a typical political back and forth. Crockett made the personal consequences of Trump's actions undeniable and vivid. And perhaps most importantly, Crockett didn't just target Trump. She expanded her attack to his entire support ecosystem by calling out figures like Elon Musk and social media platforms for amplifying Trump's lies. She showed that Trump's misinformation campaign isn't an isolated issue. It's a coordinated effort that involves tech billionaires and platforms perpetuating the falsehoods. She wasn't just addressing the symptom, she was going after the root cause. Her brilliant strategy also involved showing the stark contrast between Trump's fantasy world and the real world, where his lies and policies are causing tangible harm. Crockett's laser focus on facts and real-world consequences turned her confrontation into an undeniable indictment of Trump's false narratives. Her approach was something we rarely see in politics today. She didn't get distracted by Trump's usual deflections or personal attacks. Instead, she stayed focused on facts, real-world effects, and the broader implications of Trump's actions. She knew exactly how to confront his victim narrative without getting bogged down in defending it. Crockett didn't just expose Trump's hypocrisy, she showed everyone how to break through his manipulative tactics and take the conversation back to where it truly matters, the harm he's causing to real Americans. Now the question is whether other Democrats will have the courage to take this page from Crockett's playbook or continue tiptoeing around Trump with watered-down language. If Crockett's confrontation is anything to go by, it might just be the beginning of a much more assertive approach to confronting Trump.